good morning to all of you. I am Dr. Shango, Director of Goa Institute of Public Administration and Rural Development, speaking from the premises of the Institute at Ella for Goa. This is the public lecture organized by the Institute. The Institute is celebrating its silver jubilee from this month, 25 years of existence. And the Institute is planning series of activities in celebration of the silver jubilee. One of the activities that is planned is going for a public lecture, at least one in a month minimum, which is of public interest. We have already done one, and this is second in the series. And we have an eminent speaker, Madam Rina, Indian Administrative Service Officer, 1984 batch. Incidentally, she is from Agmut cadre, that means also includes Goa cadre. She has enormous experience of working both at the state level as well as central level. And the subject which is core to her heart is women and child, which is the children's of the country. And she is the pioneer of the Goa Children Act. That is the first act in the country that was enacted by any state for Goa. There is a feather in the cap for the state. Thereafter, Bombay High Court directed Maharashtra to adopt it, and the entire country adopted it. And that followed by many other relevant acts which are for the benefit of the children. As you are all aware, Honorable Chief Minister of Goa, Dr. Salam, has initiated a unique exercise or unique program in the country, that is Atmanirbhar Bharat and Swayambhur Goa. The Swayambhur Goa is not necessarily only a physical development. Human development also a requirement. Without a human development, a physical development is not ever sufficient. Therefore, in the context of Swayambhur Goa, this institute is pursuing human development to the entire state in terms of officials of the government and also the elected representatives at the local body level, panchayat as well as urban level, self-help groups. And during last 2 years, just last 2 years, this institute has trained more than 25,000 persons. This is a small state, it's a big number. It's in this context that Swayambhur Goa program is being vigorously pursued by Honorable Chief Minister. Now it is getting replicated in the rest of the state because Honorable Prime Minister also advocated for it. So this institute is getting prominence, support by none other than Honorable Chief Minister. And to our benefit, this institute is headed by the highest bureaucrat of the state, that is the Chief Secretary of the state, as a chairman, Shri Punit Kumar Goyal. And Director General of this institute is Shri Kandavelu sir. She is also the Finance Secretary of the state. I think when such prominent persons head this kind of institute, you can see a bright future of this institute and going to become one of the prominent institutes in the country in the years to come. I take this opportunity to introduce our eminent speaker today. Incidentally, she was my boss when she was here, Madam Ray. She was former Secretary of School Education in the Ministry of Education, Government of India, with over 36 years of experience in serving the governments at the center across various states and union territories. Madam Ray has worked as a consultant for the UNICEF and was the project head of the UN and World Bank assisted ICTS and Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan programs across India. She is presently pursuing her dream of working with children as founder of a charitable trust. Madam Ray is a postgraduate in sociology and she has completed her program in public policy at the University of Cambridge and Goldman School of Public Policy, University of California, Berkeley, and in public management in market economy at the Institute of Development Studies, University of Sussex. This particular public lecture is physically being attended by the young Goa State Civil Service officers who are recently selected by Public Service Commission, going to take the reins of the administration in the short run. They are undergoing training. They are getting benefit of this particular lecture physically present here at the institute. And also considering the importance of this particular subject, the institute thought it go live, make it a public lecture, so that it benefits larger sections of the society, both within the state, probably people may join us from outside the state. I will not take much of your time. I request Ashwini Acharya, faculty of this institute, to welcome Madam with a pot of planted pot. With this, I give the floor to Madam to deliver the lecture. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shambhar. It's such a pleasure to be back in Goa after many years. I had a wonderful stint over here, and I used to be in charge of this institute. And I would like to congratulate the government of Goa and my brilliant colleagues in the cadre, particularly the Chief Secretary, Puneet Goyal, and the Director General, Kandavelu, who I both worked with and know very well, for the incredible developments that they have done here and elsewhere. And I'd like to earnestly thank the government of Goa for inviting me to give this address over here. How would I like to structure this session today? Unlike other sessions, the initial heading was actually something very different. If Shambhar will remember, it was more about women and gender and child rights. But keeping in view recent developments all over the world, a lot of people felt that it should be more focused only on children's issues. And therefore the topic, do children have rights? Is it a question? If it's a question, where is the question mark? Is it a statement? When people were talking with me or when I was thinking myself, I realized there was a lot of pain and anguish and indignity. So if we were using emojis, people would be using perhaps the shocked emoji after this phrase, do children have rights? So I hope that at the end of the session and in the future, all of us will be able to say yes, firmly, children have rights. But sometimes at this moment, perhaps the most suitable one is the emoji of the pensive person, and we are thinking, do we actually have any rights at all? We need to consider, when we talk about the area of children's rights, the entire international position. The concept was actually first put forward by UNICEF, which has done enormous work in the field of promoting children's interests. Many countries have done amazing work, many agencies have also done. So we need to put it into that perspective. The story for me actually starts sometime in the late 1990s, when the brilliant Mr. Arun Jaitley, who later became Union Minister of India, he gave the John Barnabas Memorial Lecture in New Delhi. It was organized by the Department of Women and Child Development, where I was posted as Deputy Secretary and Director, and an organization called NIPSET, the National Institute for the Promotion of Cooperation and Child Development. For me, his lecture was a defining moment, and it was for many other people also. He introduced us to a concept called res ipsa loquitur, and he explained how this doctrine applied to children. Now, res ipsa loquitur is a Latin phrase which literally means the facts or the thing explains itself. It does not require any additional evidence. Now, in layman's terms, what would res ipsa loquitur look like? So, for example, courts all over the world have said that if a surgical instrument, like a pair of scissors, or a scalpel, or even cotton wool, is left behind inside a patient's body after the operation, it is a case of res ipsa loquitur to give justice to the patient. The patient does not have to prove or give any other evidence, because that surgical instrument should not have been inside the patient after the operation was over. Another example which was taken was when two trains collide. Two trains should not be on the same track, going in opposite directions. So what Mr. Jayatri said is that this concept, this doctrine, exists in law. He was of the opinion that this doctrine applied to children also. Where children are concerned, there is no need for anyone to give any evidence. There is no need beyond the fact that something has happened to a child which should not have actually happened. But the tragedy is that violations are happening. Certain occurrences in the Middle East have deeply traumatized and caused anguish and pain all over the world. Our world has changed so much. When I was growing up, it was about our locality, our community. It was about our district, the state we lived in. It was about the country we lived in. But with social media, with all of us going global, anything which happens anywhere in the world affects every single person. So everybody feels the anguish and the pain. But it would be immature and unwise to believe that it is only happening in one part of the world today. It would be immature and unwise to believe that child abuses and violations are not happening elsewhere, because they are. And they are happening not just in the conflict zones, as we speak today all over the world, but they are also happening in areas of peace. They are happening inside perhaps homes, perhaps schools, perhaps in public areas. So it would be unwise and immature to believe also that it's a new occurrence. It's happened before, tragically. It's happening now, child abuse and violations on a large scale. But can we do something to ensure that it doesn't happen again? When we talk about child rights, the international scale interventions, we have to talk about the United Nations Children's Fund, which has done remarkable work, not just to identify and highlight the abuses, but to come up with solutions on how to tackle these. Now remember, the UN is actually comprising all the countries. So it's belongs to everybody. That is its unique feature. And I'll come back to this unique feature towards the end also of the session. So the UNICEF and all the countries sat together. They gave a unique document called the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Now, what have they basically based the convention on? It's a large number of points, but there are 5 points which have always resonated with me and spoken to me. The first point is, why do children need unique protection? One of the main reasons is that the human baby, when it is born, is totally and completely defenseless. The baby requires that caregivers, parents, anyone, adults, take care of the baby to nurture it. In the absence of this care, usually by adults, babies may not even survive. So the basic premise of do children have rights is based on the fact human babies are the most vulnerable when they are born, compared to almost all other living species on this planet. The reasons could be that we are the most complex. Whether we are most evolved is a question which always comes up, but we are the most complex, and therefore we need time to grow. The other 4 points which resonated with me and with many other people to justify child protection and rights. It's very interesting. Children don't have the vote. They don't have the vote. Children do not participate in voting processes. Children are not economically independent and cannot take their own decisions. And lastly, a very important point, children do not have a platform where they can be heard compared to adults. Now, does this apply to all children? Because a child means someone below the age of 18. And I'm sure you must be thinking, well, all children at the age of 18, 17 or 16, they are not economically independent. That's why I'll come to this issue also later, of what is a child, what is the definition. But under the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the UNICEF and all the countries, including India, came up with the concept of the best interests of the child. In other words, every activity which not only the state, the governments, but private players actually do, has to be governed by the principle of the best interests of the child. That has to be thought of at all times. Another unique feature which UNICEF actually works on is guiding countries to prepare policies and legislation which embody the UN Convention, the best interests of the child. Now, the UN Convention came up in 1989, and it was my privilege to be working with them at various levels. I was then posted to the government of Goa, where Ashan Bhatt, I was his boss also. We were discussing children's issues. I was also in charge of women and child, amongst other departments. And at this meeting with your then former Chief Minister, Mr. Manoj Parikar, and his Secretary, Vikram Dev Dutt, a beautiful suggestion emerged. Why can't we also have a unique law in Goa which takes the best of everything that the United Nations and other countries may be doing all over the world? Why cannot we be the path breakers? This was a totally, absolutely mind-boggling suggestion to come from a government-inspired meeting. And I floated the idea with organizations, with NGOs, with parents, with lawyers, and thus started, let me tell you, one of the most fascinating experiences I think that we went through, or any government might have gone through. Hundreds of workshops starting from your taluka and even village level, involving all sections of society in Goa, and most critically, we involved the children at all ages, mostly. We gave them a platform to talk. And thus was born the Goa Children's Act in 2003. And I remember at that time the president was Dr. Abdul Kalam. He was very impressed with what we were doing. He invited us to a meeting in Delhi to understand how this act was, why we did it, and what were the main features. Now, what makes Goa Act so different? It was for the first time that issues pertaining to sexual abuse of children were raised and even defined. It was for the first time that we suggested children's courts. Now, there was a lot of opposition to this because people thought we want to try the children. We said no, it is for the adult offenders of children. It is to expedite the cases against them so that justice is done to the child. It was for the first time we spoke about state commissions for children. The Goa Act was also a very flexible act and a very bold act, if I may say, and a very far-reaching act. While we were preparing it, something very disturbing happened. We received news that in a certain part of the country, please excuse me 1 minute. Thank you. We received this very disturbing news that in a part of the country there was an organization which was running a home for children, and basically it was dealing in the sale of the children's body organs to various wealthy people. Sorry, I get disturbed when I think about it all the time. So it was a bit of Hansel and Gretel kind of atmosphere in this organization. So whether it was the blood of the child, or whether it was the kidneys or part of the liver or the cornea, the children were literally being bred for their body parts. We took cognizance of that immediately. The Goa Act perhaps became the first act in the world to say the sale of body organs of a child is prohibited. It's the first one to say. Many people say that perhaps it was very ambitious, but my approach always is that you have to be seen that somebody fought for children. And when you're trying to achieve something, it's like climbing a mountain. You climb a mountain, you're at the top, you think you've reached. But what do you suddenly see? You see another mountain at the back. You climb that mountain, what do you find? Oh my God, there's another mountain. So life is like that. We need to take many steps in order to reach our goal. So the Goa Act was a watershed movement in bringing about rights-based approach to taking care of children. The wonderful thing is that it was followed by a host of initiatives which were then applied to the whole country by the government of India. The most important being, of course, the Right to Children Act in 2009, absolutely path-breaking legislation. Then there was the POCSO Act, which was to protect children against sexual offences in 2012. Another act was passed in 2005. The Goa Act was in 2003. And under this 2005 Act, the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights was set up, and also state commissions for children. Now, over and above this, India has many provisions and legislations for children, such as the Infant Milk Substitutes Act. There are provisions prohibiting child labor, child marriage. There are many. And initially, this session was going to be largely about all of these. But if I talk about these, then we will spend hours on that. So I requested Shambha, perhaps we could have a different session some other time, only to discuss all the remarkable steps and the road ahead, specifically for India, in the area of child rights. But for the moment, I would like to go back to issues on a much larger scale. A lot has been done when we look at the achievements in terms of promoting the rights of the child. A lot has been done not just in India, but in many countries elsewhere also, which we need to keep in mind. We have, for example, achievements by the European Union and other countries over there, especially the United Kingdom and Scandinavian countries. But is it enough? Is it enough? I think based on what we are hearing and the untold and unspeakable tragedies, of which everyone is responsible, all adults everywhere are responsible for it. So is it actually enough? So I'd like to go back to those 5 points I had mentioned earlier, pertaining to the basis of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, on why a child needs unique protection. So if you remember those 5 points, the first point was that the human child is vulnerable. I think that's okay, nobody has any comments on that part. The second important point, and the third, is the child cannot vote, and the child does not participate in electoral processes. The child, the fourth point, is economically dependent. And the last point is the child is not heard. But does this really apply to, say, a 17-year-old? Do you think it does? Most 17-year-olds are very, very articulate. They can make themselves heard. And many of them, because they're about to become voters, they are being taught also all over the world. And they're very conscientious about their role as active voters. They work also. But the age of a child is 18. What about a 17-year-old? Perhaps the same. What about a 16-year-old? Perhaps the same. But what about 18 months? What do you feel about an 18-month-old baby? I think you will agree, an 18-month-old baby doesn't vote, is not economically independent. I haven't seen one, I don't think anyone has. An 18-month-old baby cannot take decisions for themselves. An 18-month-old baby does not have the ability to be heard. Now, I'm not talking about screaming and crying. That is indicating that the child is in pain or the child needs something. That is different. But a 3-year-old child, a 2-year-old child sometimes doesn't know. They cannot be heard. They see the trauma around them and they are affected. So perhaps this clubbing of a child from 18 months to 18 years, I feel at this stage needs to be modified. And we need to create groups of children within this huge age group and perhaps treat them differently. I was searching the internet and I found some references to the Geneva Convention. So the Geneva Convention basically adopts what UNICEF has said, that a child is defined as up to the age of 18. But it also has a special category of children, which is those up to the age of 12. I feel that the time has come now for everyone to look at babies and toddlers, preschool children very differently. They have no nationalities. They have no political or other allegiances. They just need to be protected and cared for because that is the way nature intended the human baby to be, and that is the way kind of duty that nature has given to the adults. That's what it actually should be. So, keeping this in mind, I was thinking of what exactly can one think of in the current scenario and elsewhere. I was at a wonderful UNICEF, I spent a long time with them and I had the greatest regard and respect for them. So this was a conference in Kathmandu, long time ago. And the speaker, I'm sorry I don't remember his name, he said that everybody loves to complain, isn't it? Everybody loves to complain. This doesn't work, this is not good, this is bad. But where are the alternatives? Where are the solutions? So what he did was he gave everyone 2 cards. He gave a red card and he gave a green card. He said, if you only want to complain, put up a red card. If you want to give a solution, put up a green card. If you want to put up a complaint and the solution to that, put up a red and a green card. And then he told everyone, I will only ask you to share your opinions if you put up both the cards together. It was an enormously huge learning experience for me. It is so easy to find fault, but it is so difficult to find solutions. So today, I'm not trying to find fault. I don't really have the red card. But in a sense, I'm giving this situation which is distressing. I would now like to work on the green card concept. I'd like to share some suggestions and some of my ideas, which have been culled from talking with a large number of people and experts to see what can we do for such an emerging situation, which is so deeply distressing for so many people everywhere. I remember when I was in school, since I was one of the better speakers, that's what my teacher said. So I was enrolled in the elocution competition, contest, event. And for that I was given a speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. I have a dream. I think most of you are nodding your heads, so you're familiar with it. And a very long speech. And I'm sorry to say, at that age when you are in school, you're not really able to grasp the content of what you're getting all you can grasp at that time is you're being asked to memorize something very long. So I asked my teacher, is this really necessary? Do I have to do it? She said, yes. And then I said, what's the advantage in memorizing? And she said that this is what education is all about. It's about learning how great men and women faced the challenges of life, how they overcame it, and how they went ahead to help people. You will read many things, but you have to select a few, and you have to memorize the words, and you have to keep those words with you, close in your heart. And my teacher died, but they have such an influence on us, don't they? We always remember them. She told me, I hope, Rina, one day you will also have a dream. And I forgot all about the teacher. I remembered her sometimes, but I remembered her again when we talk about children's issues. I did have a dream. That's why as Secretary Women and Child, I pioneered the Goa Children's Act, which has had such an enormously beneficial impact everywhere. So I also have a dream, but I don't want to now use the word dream anymore. I think I would like to say I have faith. I have faith in certain causes and certain words that they will actually work. I have faith, the first and most important, is that we can, as a human race, ensure that children will not unnecessarily or under any circumstances suffer pain, humilities, indignities, death, trauma at the age when they are most vulnerable. I have to have faith because then I believe it will actually happen. How can this happen? Sometimes when crises happen, and as I said, the world has become a single place now, we need an organization to be vocal, to voice our consciousness, our conscience. We need people's faces who we can see in times of crisis. That yes, they are on the job to make things better. These are the people we can all work with all over the world, the billions of people. There is the state government of every country, but it is my belief that only at such crises, a totally objective and neutral body like UNICEF and its head can actually fill this vacuum and this void. I have faith that they will be much more firm, that they will unite all players all over the world under their umbrella. I have to have faith. And I do have, we need to see that the human conscience is very strong, very active. Never more shall we allow these to be repeated. We need to say that to everyone and work on this issue. I have faith that people will come forward to help and work with children. The world is facing many issues. I think climate change is one of the most important challenges before us. Species are becoming extinct. Rainforests and other trees are just disappearing. We have many problems. The earth is getting warmer. The glaciers are all melting. Many people feel, and I'm talking about the top thinkers of the world, that artificial intelligence will help herald the end of humanity and civilization as we know it. So it's a frightening world that we are living in today. But we have to have faith that human beings, when we work together, we can overcome all of this. But I do feel, I don't know what is the word. Is it jealous? Is it envious of other issues compared to children's issues? I am so very happy, for example, I think you've heard of or seen David Attenborough, the crusader, the champion for the environment, for nature. One of the most respected men in the world today, and his contribution has been absolutely immeasurable and invaluable. But I feel a bit jealous. Where is the crusader for children's issues? Now, I raised this earlier also. So someone said, and they said it very correctly, when a person is fighting for the cause to arrest climate change, will children benefit? Of course they will. They're going to benefit. If artificial intelligence pushes the boundary of medical science, will children benefit? Of course they will benefit. If there is cleaner fuel, will children benefit? Of course they will benefit. We know that. So every activity which humankind is engaged in today to benefit humankind is going to benefit the children. We do not contest that aspect at all. But I have faith because we need a crusader like David Attenborough and others. We need them in the area of protecting the children. And if no one else, protecting the toddlers and the babies. Perhaps not so much 18-year-old and 17-year-olds. But the 2-year-olds, the 3-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, they need our protection. That's what nature asked us to do. Mother Nature has entrusted this task to all adults. We have to come forward and do it. I have faith that we will have a crusader like Mr. David Attenborough. I have faith that we will have other champions. Now UNICEF does have its ambassadors. I would be very happy, and I have faith that they will develop more champions who can interact directly with each country. So instead of having some ambassadors, I have faith that they will identify influential people who can spend, let us say, half a day only every month to talk to agencies in every country and remind them, Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, this is what we feel needs to be done. Is there any problem? How can we help you? It makes a difference. We have influencers. Social media is full of influencers. How to apply makeup, which tourist places to go to. Many of them are doing excellent work also. Could be on consumer products, it could be on environment. Do we have any or even enough talking about children's issues? For some reason which I can't fathom, it could be because children can't vote, they can't be heard. But older children can be heard. That is why advertisers did try to use children to influence their parents in buying products. So if I I recollect correctly, countries, especially in Scandinavian region, have come up with very strong legislation prohibiting the targeting of children in any advertisement. So this is another very active role which UNICEF could play, picking up the best practices from countries all over the world and using their champions to share it with every single country on what they can do. There is another category of people who didn't exist when I was growing up and I was a young person. But this category is now very young and they are enormously influential, particularly with young people, I feel. I mean, they're influential with everyone. You can't miss them. This is the category of the billionaires, I think. They are everywhere, doing many things, talking about many things, being extraordinarily innovative in their work. But I have faith that at least one of them will pick up the area of protecting children, especially the most vulnerable. That is the toddlers and the babies. And they will go ahead and talk about it. Imagine the power and the influence which all of these people together can wield to change anything, to change ideas, to change values, to change behaviors. Billionaires also have influence and a lot of money. My dream and my faith is just like we have the National Geographic Channel or BBC Earth on issues pertaining to animals and the environment. We will also have a channel for children's issues. Remember, even animals can't vote. They can't be heard. Trees don't have any participation in electoral processes. So the environment depends on adults to look after their interests. And adults could do more, but by and large, they are doing extraordinary work in promoting interests. I think I can ask you, everyone will know about the people working for this cause. But do we have the similar type of influencers, champions? Where are the crusaders? Where are the protectors? Where are the guardians? Where are the angels looking after the smaller children, especially the toddlers and the babies? One important aspect of all humans is hope and faith. If we don't have it, it is said by many people that we will surely become insane. So, is there anything good that is happening? Although that sounds very bad to say. I think for many people, the concept that you need to treat the smaller, vulnerable ones differently is a very critical suggestion. So I therefore go back to where I started, which is with the brilliant Mr. Arun Jaitley, the concept of res ipsa locutor. As he explained it, he says you don't need to prove anything to protect children and to promote their well-being, their lives, their welfare. He says you don't need any evidence. The very fact that they are human children, that is enough for any court, any state government, any private agency, any international agency to intervene on behalf of that child and to give justice to that child, because that is what children today are demanding. So I have faith that the highest courts of every country will adopt this legal principle enunciated by Mr. Arun Jaitley and apply it to the cause of children, at least starting with the babies and the toddlers and the preschool, all over the world, in every situation. Let them come forward also and give directions and work with agencies to create an action plan, not in 6 years, not in 4 years, not in 1 year. Some action needs to be taken now itself. We need to see faces. We need to hear voices of crusaders. Is it too late? It's never too late. But for children, how can we face them if we don't proactively work? There are a lot of good people out there doing wonderful things. What Shanbag and I have started is the brotherhood of good people. So we encourage everyone all over the world to meet each other, draw strength from each other, help each other. If there's nothing else you can do, let us all at least work for the toddlers and the babies who are most vulnerable and need our help. Thank you very much. If there's any clarifications or any questions that, all right, yes.
Madam, thank you very much. And I leave now the floor open for question and answer sessions. There are people who have joined us online as well as officers who are sitting here. Let us start with officers' questions. Then any questions that comes up online, we will read it out. So now I request the young officers, any questions if you have asked, madam, please.
Hello ma'am, good morning. Ma'am, I feel generally in life, tolerance is good, having to some extent. But do you think when it comes to children, and especially things like child pornography, should there be something very, very strict with zero tolerance, not tolerating things at all? Because recently in Goa also some people were arrested for the same thing. I would like to understand your take on this issue where child pornography is in circulation and all those things.
All right, it's a very critical issue that you've raised. A couple of months back, I was with some teachers in Delhi, and they shared how distressed they were, but what they really shared was the depths to which pornography is actually being viewed by school children, because these were school teachers. They shared how it is impacting them in their lives, because as scientists and educationists say, when you watch too much pornography, some chemical reactions take place in the brain. It's not simply you watch and you go away. Something is happening to your wiring and your neural pathways inside the brain. And what happens when a small child views it? It is so easy to see it. It's all over the place. I share your concern. Many people do have this very genuine worry, particularly the parents have this. The response we get normally is that you can't do anything about it because it is an expression of free speech of some people. You understand what I'm saying? I presume mostly adults. So then I said, well, okay, if you think it over, all adults, every group is so articulate today in voicing what they want, what they need, and what their issues are. And that's good. It's exactly how things should be. Everyone should have a voice. But where is the voice of a child? So when a 4 or 5 or 6-year-old child stumbles upon a pornographic channel and starts imagining later on that this is the norm, what are the implications? And we are already seeing the implications, I think, in many ways. This is why I kept focusing on the issue of children need to be heard. And this is why I kept coming back to the issue of the UN actually taking the lead role. What's happening now is that there's a kind of a vacuum. Many people feel it's like that. We're not certain what's happening. The parents are now coming forward, and that's also good. Parents need to be involved. But we are doing an injustice to the child. It's going to take years and years for the parents to figure things out. It's not their job to go into law and everything. We have an organization at the international level. So we need a debate on this. So while one group of people feel it's their right to watch, how does that impinge on other people needs to be discussed, needs to be debated. And solutions need to be found. That's why I said it's not just the red card, it should be the green card also. Thank you for your question.
Hello ma'am, do you think rights available to children in India is up to mark? Do you want to suggest any improvements?
I deliberately spoke on the larger context because we are a very interconnected world today. If you look at actual rights and legislations, I would actually put India as one of the most forefront countries in the world. We have an act called the Infant Milk Substitutes Act, which actually protects the right of a mother to breastfeed her baby. Very few countries have that kind of legislation. Very few countries, I think, have the kind of provisions that we have in the Goa Act. I mean, I don't know anywhere else where things like sale of body parts of a child are prohibited. All right. The UN conventions are very strong. So it's not that things don't exist on paper. We need to constantly be reviewing them to see where they need to be modified, and we need to work together to implement. It's always an issue now of not what is not done or what is the gap, but to appreciate how far we have reached and how we can go forward. That's very important. All right? Again, that green card. What can we do to make things better? I hope that helps a little bit, okay? All right.
Hello ma'am, thank you for the insightful lecture. So I had a question which concerned mainly trying to understand how best the state understands what's in the best interest of the children. And this is something I say also in the context of recent news which we have seen from Scandinavian countries per se, wherein a lot of Indian families, their children were taken away by the state authorities and put in government shelters. And that was out of concern that the parenting mechanisms which they followed were not really in the best interest of the children. So in light of this, what is the balance which we can aim for in terms of parents having the autonomy over parenting their children versus the state really protecting the interests of the children?
All right. In response to a question, I did raise the issue of the role of parents. Parents needing to be more alert, parents needing to be much more involved in all issues pertaining to their child. You talked about, I heard the definition of what is best interests and how do people basically know. I think at the end of the day, I would like to go back actually to what Mr. Arun Jaitley kept telling us. You got a child. The child is crying. Do you need to debate any issue over there? You really don't need to debate any issues, okay? You might with a 17-year-old child or a 16-year-old child. But my focus today largely is how to take care of the most vulnerable, all right? At this moment, I don't think it would be appropriate for me to comment on a legal case which is happening. I think all we can do in all cases is to be guided that whatever is in the interest. So whether it is the family or whether it is the country, that's again why I keep saying we need to have faith. We need to have this larger body like the United Nations, which can then share. Suppose you have a TV channel, all right? We could have a debate on issues of how to tell the state government, how to share with the parents. At the moment, what's happened is many of us are still trying to find out all over the world what actually needs to be done, what is the way forward. So that's why I'm suggesting we need more people there who we can turn to, more people who can aid and advise and guide and mentor everyone on what needs to be done. Perhaps the channel, perhaps the blog, perhaps the influencers. We need to create a much bigger movement which looks at all of these. We were all children once. And the people here today are some of the most privileged, that we not only survived, but we were nurtured. We didn't have to go through traumatic situations. We are here. We need to see how can we give that to other children also. It's a very dynamic situation, but the environment needs to be created much more. All of us have to work in that regard.
Good morning, ma'am. So you mentioned that children lack a platform to be heard. So in this situation, we see that adolescents take to the internet to voice their opinions. But today we see that social media and technologies can actually be detrimental to children's rights. So how can we provide a safe long-term platform to children to be heard? And if we are to provide such a platform, what should we keep in mind?
Okay. A safe platform for children. I like the phraseology because that is what is actually used internationally. I think that some countries, including UNICEF, the European Union, they are working on this issue of how to protect a child while at the same time giving full opportunities to other people. UNICEF did come up with a fascinating suggestion, which was the child parliaments and the child committees at every school level, all right? But I do like your suggestion, so let's think of designing this TV channel, which I made, that it could have a special session, this TV channel, suggestion which you have made. Let there be a safe space created where children from all over the world can actually share their insights and others. I remember a small video on WhatsApp, apparently made by children, which said that our parents spend all their time on mobile phones. They don't talk to us, they don't play games. In fact, if you go to an airport, any airport, everyone is on their mobile phone, including small children on prams. So what are the roles and responsibilities of children? These things I think we could put into that TV channel. I think it's an excellent idea, creating a safe space. But again, never forget, you are talking about adolescence, right? So let me ask you a question. From what age do you think children are able to articulate what they feel and what they want? What do you think?
12 or 13.
You're thinking 12, 13, absolutely. So we could have them there, but never forget that for the younger children, it's people like you and you who have to take care of them, and me. Never forget that. So children speak through us. That is where we need the crusaders and the champions, the adults to come forward, like David Attenborough, and really actually take this whole issue onwards. That's a good suggestion. We could also talk about other issues as you mentioned, for the legal part, yes, and pornography also. All right. Is that all, Shammas? Okay. I hope that was useful, and I think that Goa especially, because it's been a pioneer in so many things, it can help to take these things ahead, coalesce them and discuss it, and I hope somewhere someone can see so that, in a couple of years' time, not too far in the future, we can meet and we can say, well, everything we had a dream about, all the issues I had faith in, or you have, they have actually been realized, and things are much better today. You have to have faith always, otherwise things can be really disturbing. And this last point I would share, which I do share with many people, is don't get despondent. Every step is valuable. So don't worry when people say this is on paper or this doesn't work or what could be. Things have really improved a lot for children. But yes, as you said, a long way to go also. Always be upbeat, be positive. We are their voice. We are their strength. We need to take care of them now. And we need UNICEF. I'm sorry, I have to end with them also. It's not enough to just talk politely. They have to be loud. They have to be determined. And they have to say, this is not acceptable anymore. Stop it. Okay. Thank you. Best of luck to everyone.
Thank you, madam, for your very insightful, inspiring lecture. I thank on behalf of Government of Goa and the Institute in particular for taking time coming all the way from Delhi to Goa to deliver this lecture, and also allowing us to make it live for the benefit of public. Though those who are on live, they have heard, but this lecture will be available so that this will be seen by the people in due course of time. But one, I have told you people earlier also, whenever any lecture or anything you attend, one or two important key things that need to be taken out of that, which will be helpful to you, which I could remember when I worked with her, which she articulated in a much better way today, is that a red card and green card, right? So in a bureaucratic place, it is, madam has put it in a different manner, which I picked up. I don't know how many more officers have picked up. Is that a good officer is the one who, if you say something, the other day I also told you that if you say something no on the file, you must know what is yes. You should come out with 3 solutions to it. You will grow as an officer, you will contribute to the society. When, if you have a problem, don't simply say this cannot be done. Please contribute by communicating how it can be done, what are the alternate solutions that are available. Which I other day I mentioned to it, I am re-mentioning again this to you because that was picked up from working under madam. And today she articulated in a slightly different manner as a red card and green card. So I once again thank Madam Rina for taking time, coming over here and giving us time to deliver this lecture. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.